Back to 1933, the U.S. government has helped to subsidize farming. It's been done in many cases to help keep farmers in business, but also has helped to keep food prices low in the United States. By subsidizing grains, for example, poultry producers can pay less and as a result, charge less for their chickens. Many of these subsidies get approved by Congress roughly every 4 or 5 years. Though each law is given a different name, they all get referred to as the Farm Bill. But the Farm Bill does more than subsidize farmers. It's also responsible for renewing funding for many social programs, such as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, formerly known as food stamps. Hello, I'm Jason Huffman, Editor-in-Chief of Food Chemical News. Welcome to the Knife and Fork Show. The last Farm Bill was passed in 2008, and guess what? It is now due to expire. In every prior instance, urban and rural members of Congress have come together to get these bills done. But getting a new bill is not a sure thing in this partisan Capitol Hill environment. Here to break this down is my returning guest and champion, Robert Gunther, Senior Vice President for Public Policy at the United Fresh Produce Association, one of the produce industry's largest and most influential trade associations. Robert, was that an accurate description of the Farm Bill?
It was pretty close.
Pretty close?
No, it was a good description of the Farm Bill. It is one of those pieces of legislation that every 5 years or so, Congress tries to take a handle on. And it really tries to develop, a coalition of members, an interesting coalition of members of Congress to move it through the process. And as you mentioned, there's been a lot of talk even recently about why doesn't we have just a farm bill and then a nutrition bill? And quite frankly, when you look at the environment in Congress right now, there's very small amount of rural members in Congress that would care about just an agriculture bill. So having these two major issues put together into one piece of legislation is really one of the interesting kind of developments of legislation over the last 30, 40 years or so.
That used to be the reason why we could get this bill passed.
Right.
But we're having a little trouble right now. So what's going on with the legislation? What have we run into, and sort of what's the outlook on it right now?
The main problem we've run into is we're in an election year, and when you've got a divided Congress, it always becomes difficult to pass any type of legislation. The Farm Bill happens to be, in 2012, one of those challenges, one of those major challenges. As you mentioned, the bill is set to expire on September 30th, in just 2 weeks from now. And there is no sign that this bill could get passed by Congress really in the near future. Congress is not coming back into session for, after this week and next week, not until probably what you would call a lame duck session after the election. So you've got a situation where the Senate has passed their version of the bill. You've got the House Agriculture Committee that has passed their version of the bill. And we can't quite get across the finish line. Both have developed good products, good types of products related to farm bill frameworks for farm bills to be successful farm bills and get it passed. But we haven't quite been able to convince the House leadership, we and the members of the House Ag Committee have not been able to convince the leadership that this bill is important enough to bring up before the election.
So the whole Senate has embraced one bill.
That's
and
right.
The House Committee, the most important
on a
House
bipartisan manner.
Right. So, and one House committee, the most influential committee in relation to this bill, has put something together that they like.
That's correct, on a bipartisan manner as well. So you have a unique situation where you talk about this partisan divide that Congress has been hampered with for not just this Congress, but last several Congresses. You've got a bipartisan bill that has strong bipartisan support from both Democrats and Republicans. And it's just stuck right now in limbo, especially in the House.
Are the two bills very similar, or are there a lot of differences that could be a problem later on?
For the most part, they are similar. There are some exceptions there. The two big exceptions is how they deal with Title I commodities. In other words, the subsidized commodities. Those are corn, cotton, wheat, dairy, those types of commodities. and then also in the nutrition title, what's cut. The challenge you have right now is people want to reform Title I, how farmers are treated under a farm, how their safety net is put together. In years past, there's been what's called direct payments. A lot of members in Congress want to get rid of those direct payments and put in more of a crop insurance risk management type tool. On the nutrition side, it's the issue related to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP. There's a lot of members of Congress right now who feel that is overutilized and that needs to be more safety or more framework put around that reduces the utilization.
I can guess which members of Congress feel one way versus the other.
Right.
Okay, so they're kind of at loggerheads.
Mm-hmm.
There are some provisions that the produce industry probably cares about more than
Sure.
others in this farm bill. What are those?
Well, I think in particular what's different, unique about us, our industry, and I'll try to make this short and kind of get to the crux of your question is, the produce industry is very unique. It's a very diverse set of groups. And how I've always described it is we want a toolbox approach. So what's good for a citrus grower in California, what the tools he needs to be successful as a grower, may be totally different than a citrus grower maybe in Florida or even Texas. So we're not looking for a one-size-fits-all program, a lot like the Title I commodities where they have direct payments. We've never asked for direct payments or subsidies. We've looked at things that promote trade, help invest in research, deal with nutrition programs in particular, increasing access to fruits and vegetables in schools, and then also looking at state and local investment. Again, you have uniqueness within our agriculture sector that we think that it's more important to get the money to the state and local level so they can invest in things that are important through like what we call specialty crop state block grants.
Okay.
So California gets a block grant, all across the country, every state in the country gets a block grant to help their specialty crop producers and their fruit and vegetable producers be more successful and invest in things they think are important on the ground at that time.
Now, we were talking earlier, there was an incident back in 2008 where the tomato growers got into a lot of trouble because their crops were being blamed for salmonella outbreak, and it turned out it was not the tomatoes, it was the peppers. Right. I think the confusion was related to people eating salsa, and they blamed the wrong part of the salsa.
That's right.
So the tomato growers took a bath. They started losing sales, a ton of money was at stake. And now as a result, we're talking about adding a provision to the Farm Bill that might help to sort of provide a little bit of insurance to the growers in a scenario like this. Right. And I understand that you're very familiar with this. How will this thing work?
Well, basically, both the Senate passed Farm Bill and the House Agriculture Committee passed Farm Bill have similar provisions that require that the U.S. Department of Agriculture, what's called their RMA or their Risk Management Agency, which develops all crop insurance type proposals, to do an assessment and evaluation to look at whether recall type insurance could be useful, viable, and for fruit and vegetable producers. So basically how that would work is they are going to go through a process of evaluation, talking to the industry, and looking at where there can be things that can be used as a tool you would purchase insurance, that if something happened and there was a negative fallback, if it was a product, in other words, that wasn't just like the tomato incident where it wasn't necessarily directly related to a recall, that those growers could be potentially compensated for not having anything to do with an outbreak. I mean, let's face it, even when there is an outbreak related to a particular commodity, it's really focused on usually one particular farm or one particular operation, and all the other growers across the country could be negatively impacted because consumers are nervous about purchasing that product. So this is a way to kind of look at that type of product and whether or not you could develop a risk management tool or a risk management product that could help these producers help alleviate some of the concern related to something it's out of their control.
So you believe that the Farm Bill has a chance in the lame duck session, maybe not before then,
right,
but after we have the presidential election. Doesn't matter who wins?
It doesn't matter who wins. I think that certainly there is enough pressure right now that they need to get a Farm Bill done this year. Kicking the can down the road is, some have talked about a one-year extension. really is not in the best interest of the, not just the fruit and vegetable producers in this country, but all agriculture who rely on a stable, 5-year bill that kind of gives them stability and certainty about what the programs will be to help them guide their growing operations.
Okay. Well, that's all the time we have for now. I'd like to thank Robert Gunther for coming in and doing 2 segments with us today. Remember, if you ever have trouble finding our latest Knife and Fork show, go to foodchemicalnews.com.